Welcome back to Halcyon, spacers, smugglers, workers, and especially you, the scientists and engineers who make the wheels of the colony turn. Today, I'd like to discuss the strange experiments and discoveries that keep the colony running, even the secret scary ones. I'd like to, but, I'm contractually obligated not to disclose information which might harm the company's reputation. But you're probably going to find out anyway, so what the heck? Just don't tell anyone I told you. Oh, and if you're not worried about the company sending mercenaries after me, go on and hit subscribe. As a warning, this video contains spoilers for the story of the Outer Worlds. Alright, let's get into it. The Halcyon colony is filled with strange sights, sounds, and if you get too close to the edge of town, smells. The churning of wheels as engines and turbines provide power, both electrical and mechanical. The buzzing of electricity as generators and capacitors store and discharge power. Mind you don't get too close. The bubbling of fluid in glass tubes filled with creatures both dead and living. Well, sort of living, in the strictest sense of the word. Factories rumble away and workers pull levers, dig holes, shovel, let's say dirt. They lift and sort, pack and deliver. Ships skip across the sky, their engines spinning and sending them through the black of space. Ports across the colony wait to receive the goods carried on board. All of this is made possible by the minds behind the strange science that defies gravity, time, pressure, and more often health and safety. There have also been some failures along the way, probably more the rule than the exception, now that I mention it. All of this wonderful, strange, horrible, explosive mess that we call science has brought us the tools, food, weapons, and machines we need to keep things moving. It requires intelligence, experimentation, a willingness to defy our fears, and of course, funding. So, how does it work? Science and engineering in Halcyon is undertaken at the request and under the supervision of any of the various corporations with the power and wealth to fund such ventures. This sort of science is either horrifically self-serving or is best described as science with inverted commas. Both the process and the result are in some way used by the corporation to make a profit, and if the results of the venture prove unprofitable, they're scrapped. Being scrapped in Halcyon is a lot more literal than you might think, with entire labs and teams of scientists made redundant. At best, they're no longer paid and told to leave so that the company can strip the project's assets and put them to another use. At worst, they're forcibly retired and the lab abandoned. The documentation expunged and all evidence linking the corporation to the project is destroyed. Of course, there's usually something remaining that can link them, but not enough to mount a legal defense at any rate. Still though, it's not all bad. Many independent communities have formed around the remains of infrastructure abandoned by one corporation or another, like the iconoclasts on Monarch, who, if they ally with Stellar Bay, have a bright future ahead. Successful discoveries are sometimes made, and these are the ones we get to hear about, usually blasted into our ears by advertising drones or plastered on billboards draped across the skyline. From new formulations of our favorite sugary drink to powerful drugs that boost our energy and productivity. From engines capable of keeping asteroids afloat in the skies to weapons that turn our enemies to dust with bursts of plasma. From hollowed out asteroids that serve as secret layers to automechanicals capable of cleaning the toughest germs, and sometimes marauders, off of any surface. You get the idea. Now, I've spoken about the food and food-like products available in Halcyon before. You can check that out in the linked playlist, but it might be worth going over some of the science involved in their production. Now, anyone who's been to Halcyon will know about Rizzos. They manufacture many of the sugary foods and drinks that keep the colonists so hyper as to be almost vibrating at their desks. Their most famous product line is made from purple berries. They've managed to squeeze so many products from this one simple fruit that you'll be tripping over them on your way to your job at the cannery. They own and run the operation on Eridanos, where they maintain the purpleberry orchards as well as their distillery, where so many of their drinks are made. That all sounds delightful until you run into the deadly swarms of wasp mosquitoes in the orchards or the twisting, smiling parasitic hosts which, as we now know, are infected as a result of their newest product, as of this writing, Spectrum Brown. Pour one out for Halcyon Helen, just don't drink any yourself. The horrors at Eridanos are a footnote to what we can find at the Borst factory on Monarch, run by C&P. Best known as the source of the colony's favorite line of, mostly, pork meat products, C&P foods have been a staple in every kitchen and cantina from Byzantium to Scylla. Of course, the wildlife on Monarch also provides a rich source of meat when the cysty pigs get ill, but that's not the whole truth. All I'm saying is avoid Clive's special formula, unless you really want to have your friends for dinner. Of course, talking about Monarch, we have to bring up MSI, a now independent company. They've been the colony's premier provider of salt tuna for ages, and now that they've become independent, they've struggled to find buyers, mostly because they've been embargoed by the board. The docks and warehouse are filled with salt tuna ready to be shipped out. Usually, anyway, of course, the company runs a tight ship. Wages are low and labor is hard. Since the change of management and a possible alliance with the Iconoclasts, things may change for the better over in Stellar Bay. Colway Pharmaceuticals and its subsidiary Anticleos makes many of the medicinal products available in Halcyon. Their products are often made and tested in hidden labs, and many of their materials come from the Roseway Gardens on Terra 2. They also controlled the Olympus orbital pharmaceutical station in orbit above Olympus. Things were going well there until they weren't, and the company decided to terminate operations, fatally. And of course, who could forget Spacer's Choice? Certainly not me by contractual obligation. Among their many holdings, their most, nefarious is or was their lab on Gorgon, which is likely either back in production or now a smoking ruin. These facilities are where Adrenatime was created and tested. It would be fair to say some mistakes were made, and the scientists there definitely had some explaining to do. The ones that survived, anyway. See, the result of all that science was the creation of the Marauders, crazed former test subjects, employees, and security forces, some of whom made it off-world to wreak havoc across Halcyon. Secrets eventually came to light, though, even the ugly and terrifying ones. And with the failing infrastructure and supply shortages across the colony, it's more and more difficult for these companies to hide their mistakes and the aftermath of their projects. Of course, we can turn some of their discoveries to our use, and I don't mean opening a can of Borst and picking out the unrecognizable bits. Developments in physics and chemistry have put a lot of tools, weapons, and gear at our disposal. Now, if we're going to be part of society, either polite or impolite, we'll need to put on some clothes. Whether we throw on some filthy mining gear, heavy riot armor, or a top hat and tails. It's pretty impolite in most of Halcyon to wander around in the nude, not to mention the unmentionables, which, of course, I'm not going to mention. Now, putting on heavy rigid plates to cover our soft bits is something people have been doing for millennia. Developments in technology in the colony have given us the ability to upgrade our clothing and armor with special kits that increase our proficiency with certain skills or help us perform our everyday tasks like lifting heavy boxes or taking out marauders at range before they can get our delicious saltuna. Where discoveries and experiments have really paid off, though, is in the development of weapons. There's never been a time when people weren't looking for unique ways to off one another, and boy, has Halcyon got you covered. Now, beyond just whacking someone with a heavy stick, stabbing them with a sharp thing, shooting bullets at them, or blowing them up, there are a number of special ways to deal damage to your enemies. The ways I listed above are means of doing physical damage, but the brave corporate scientists, and likely their even braver test subjects, have given us a number of other methods of bringing down even the most heavily armored foe. Plasma damage causes burns and is great at damaging fleshy enemies. Corrosion eats away at heavy armor. Shock damage is great against automechanicals. N-rays not only mess up a target's internal bits, but they radiate out to anyone in the nearby area, which is useful when you're being ganged up on by marauders. And of course, advancements in cryotech have allowed us to shoot rays that freeze our enemies, slowing them down significantly. The weapons we can obtain that deal these effects are no less impressive in their design. Despite all of these impressive items, we can, as mentioned, just whack someone really hard with a stick or stab them with a sharp thing if we want. Tossball sticks, hammers, sabers, staffs, axes, long-bladed poles, and even scythes. We can use gardening tools, pickaxes, hatchets, rakes, and other implements lying around if we're really in a pinch. Some of the more unique technology include things like plasma cutters, which are small bladed tools that use plasma to burn through objects precisely. For the more discerning troublemaker, there are a range of pistols and long guns available. Some are designed for specific damage types, such as the plasma rifle, which allows the user to charge up a more powerful shot and release it, burning huge holes in, hopefully, the correct target. Weapons like the ultimate bolter allow us to ricochet our shots from one surface to another with ease. And for the less discerning customer, there are always heavy weapons, for when precision just isn't an option and spraying bullets, lightning, flame, and plasma on everything and everyone in front of you seems like the best option. There are many more unique weapons as well, though. These all perform variations of the above functions. There are a series of weapons which are a little more unique, experimental, and highly dangerous, to your enemies mostly. We have the science weapons. Showcasing the best and worst science ever devised by the brilliant and deranged minds in Halcyon, the science weapons are capable of some truly terrifying things. Each is completely unique and has special effects unavailable in other weapons. The higher your science skills are, the more effective each of these weapons will be. Employee Benefits is a pistol obtainable by helping Dr. Lowe on Olympus. It's less a weapon and more of a tool that heals the target. Point it at one of your friends and watch the bullet wounds disappear. The Gloop gun was developed by scientists working at the now abandoned UDL lab on Monarch. It has the ability to immobilize a target and send them flying by firing a mess of sticky resin at them. You have to take a test to acquire it. Just think like a soulless corporate executive and you'll pass, no problem. The mandibular rearranger is well named. For one thing, it freezes any target for a time, which can be handy. It also rearranges their facial features, which is fun to watch, but I'd imagine causes all kinds of problems at parties. Located in an abandoned lab in Cascadia, the mind control ray causes any target affected to turn on and attack their allies. It's like an employment contract, but you don't have to ask them to sign anything first. The prismatic hammer is incredibly useful if you can't decide what sort of damage would be most useful in a given situation. Why not all of them? If you're good enough at science yourself, you can cycle through each of the damage types listed above, combining effects and getting the most out of each swing. What weird experiments Dr. Wells gets up to in his hidden lair are best left undiscovered, except for one. The shrink ray is a handy method of reducing any threat. Literally, it can shrink a target to a fraction of their size. You'd best stomp on them before the effect wears off, though. Have you ever wanted to make door-to-door delivery faster? Do you mostly deliver live explosive devices? Are you at all concerned with property damage or loss of life? Then special delivery might be the weapon for you. It uses homing technology, originally designed to deliver mail to specific targets with precision. It was abandoned and retrofitted to direct explosives to where they're most needed instead. Explosives not your thing? What about vodka? If you've ever wanted to share a drink with your enemies at high velocity and great risk to their lives, then you'll want to grab the Spectrum Gatling. You'll have to travel all the way to Eridanos for this one. It's another way to cycle through each damage type, though it has the benefit of slowly increasing its rate of fire over time until it spits enough damage at a target that you'll have a room cleared in seconds if you have good aim. Or bad aim. Actually, aim doesn't matter. If you're a fan of adventure serials, then you'll know all about Halcyon Helen. Of course, she uses her iconic needler to subdue her enemies and the enemies of all good customers, citizens of the colony. The needler has 3 unique damage types: a slow poison, a corrosive acid, and a numbing chemical. The wielder can choose which projectile is best. There's only one way to obtain this weapon, and that would mean that Halcyon Helen has to still be alive, right? Is she or isn't she? You'll have to find out for yourself. Of course, another serial star, Archibald Excelsior, wields a weapon no less iconic: the PET, Pest Extermination Tool, an energy axe of heroic virtue. The weapon not only damages foes, it pulls them toward the attacker, preventing them from getting away. Of course, even sufficiently advanced tools can be used as weapons. The Other Buddy is a wrench that can magnetize a target, causing other enemies to be pulled toward them, handy for rounding them up so you're not running all over the place trying to pick them off. And of course, one of our most useful tools as a detective, if also the most annoying, the discrepancy amplifier is not so much a weapon as it is a way to locate statistically improbable circumstances that may point us towards certain conclusions. It can only function in the area around the Eridanos, and while it is primarily an investigatory tool, it can fire a small bolt that damages a target slightly. It's best used for its primary purpose, though. You'll want to switch to something bigger for any real action. Of course, the science in Halcyon has put so many weapons at our disposal, but there are many other technologies from which we benefit. Among the technologies most crucial to the founding of the colony are the many vessels that ply the skies and travel through space. Longer journeys like those from Earth to the Halcyon system require the use of a skip drive, incredibly advanced pieces of technology employed on ships like the Groundbreaker and the Hope. Large ships of this nature can still take years to make such long journeys. Smaller vessels, equipped with skip drive technology, can travel much faster. Skip space travel can also be used for interplanetary travel, making journeys that would have taken less complex ships a long time much shorter, and making travel from one settlement to another quick and easy. On the other hand, if you can't use skip space, or even if skip space travel to your destination of choice would take an incredibly long time and you'd rather not be stuck aboard a cramped metal tube for years and arrive when you're too old to remember why you came, you'll need to take advantage of cryostasis. Cryostasis is the term for a field of practice that puts living people into a suspended animation that preserves them as they are for a long period of time. The same field of study also brought us the weapons that fire cold rays, so it's a broad subject. The system works by placing each person into an individual pod that maintains specific environmental criteria, keeping the colonist, from aging while they remain asleep. These systems were employed aboard the Hope and the Groundbreaker during the journey from Earth to the colony. There are currently an entire population of frozen colonists just waiting to wake up. The process is not without issues though, and residual effects from long stretches of cryostasis can cause skip flu, which sounds rough, but it does allow the patient to break the laws of space-time in their favor, also known as tactical time dilation. I'll get to that in a minute. And of course, the colony wouldn't function without its loyal automechs, and the malfunctioning murderous ones too. Automechs are autonomous units designed to perform specific menial tasks, which most humans are forced to do anyway, so double the productivity, I guess? They can be found gardening, digging, cleaning up blood, operating machinery, even guarding factories and other corporate holdings. The most visible automechs are the ad drones that shout slogans from every corner of the colony and are in no way incredibly annoying. They're also the easiest to shoot. I'm not suggesting anything, I'm just pointing that out. The question of whether they really do have some form of intelligence or are merely responding to programming is an interesting point of discussion, though any time at all spent around Sam and his sardonic comments should be enough to convince you that at least they're smarter than the average sprat, and in some cases the average bureaucrat. Now, I mentioned TTD earlier, and I think it's time to address that. Not so much a carefully curated creation as an accidental side effect of a more useful technology. TTD is nonetheless helpful when you just want things to calm down for a second. Marauders are coming at you from every side, and bullets and plasma blasts are passing overhead and singeing your hair. Sometimes it's all a little too much. The effect of TTD is a complication caused by being frozen in stasis for an extended period. The brain begins to process time differently. This allows the afflicted person to slow time down, allowing them to more precisely pick their targets, assess information, and strike harder. The effect lasts for a short duration, and the more actions taken, the shorter it will last. But there are certain effects that can extend one's ability to use it. Some perks also give extra time and increase the effectiveness of TTD. Speaking of perks, another valuable bit of tech available in Halcyon is a machine that allows you to completely reset your skills and abilities if you so choose. One is located aboard the Unreliable for your personal use, but like everything in Halcyon, it costs a lot of bits. I've spoken about another piece of technology before in a previous entry, but the medical inhaler is a wonder of science, allowing you to combine drug and food effects into one effective device. It's like having your own pharmacy on hand. Side effects may vary, use responsibly. Of course, there's no getting through a discussion of science and unsafe working conditions without mentioning Dr. Phineas Wells. The first face we see upon waking from cryostasis, although only briefly as he locks us in a tube and fires us down to Terra 2 at high velocity, Phineas has been living aboard a hollowed-out asteroid for some time, performing experiments and building devices. He's a fugitive from the board for reasons we quickly discover. His goal is to try and awaken the colonists aboard the Hope and put an end to the board's power. He needs us to get our hands dirty and help him perform a number of tasks, including the retrieval of some chemicals he needs to wake the colonists properly. Without these substances, they'll likely melt into slush as soon as their pods are deactivated. We can turn him over to the board for a substantial reward, though it's unlikely that this would benefit the colony, but hey, bits are bits, right? Another scientist of note is Dr. Ava Chartrand. She works for the board, in particular UDL. Dr. Chartrand has spent her career working to improve the food in Halcyon and is noted as having improved cystipig juiciness. She would rather help the colony though, and with a little convincing can be persuaded to join Dr. Wells and help provide her experience to the food production of the waking colonists. Dr. Olivia Ambrose set out to do some good as well, so she says. It's clear that the project she was working on also appealed to her own vanity. She was involved in the making of Adrenatime, something she felt would help the colonists of Halcyon, though she noted some problems when participants began to violently murder one another. It would later be revealed that Adrenatime was responsible for the marauders that plague Halcyon. While Olivia would later attempt to destroy the facility where the drug was produced, she personally profited from its production and sale and was in no danger of losing her wealth. I alluded earlier to Dr. Jasper Lowe, who worked for Auntie Cleo's aboard the Olympus Orbital Pharmaceutical Station. He worked on the production and improvement of anthracillin. In time, he would begin to make his own drug, Dr. Lowe's Sky High Mix, which you can learn about in my video on the food and pharmaceuticals available in Halcyon. Dr. Lowe was aloof and seemed to lack empathy for his colleagues as they were killed by Auntie Cleo's pink slip protocol, though he is quite thankful if you help him out by fixing the facility's turbines and surviving the security measures near the required terminal. The citizens of the Halcyon colony have been served by the many scientists and engineers that call various corners of space their home. Sometimes they've been served well, more often quite poorly. In the end, the greatest benefactor of all of this advancement is the board and the associated companies that turn the discoveries made by these folks into profit-generating product, which they can sell back to the colonists in some way. Pretty soon, though, things are going to be different. Soon, the board will hopefully be gone, and the science and technology of Halcyon will be used to the benefit of the colonists. The survivors of the Hope will provide a stronger workforce, and the work of scientists like Dr. Chartrand will ensure that there's enough food on the table to sustain them, while together they work to build a sustainable future for Halcyon. That's the dream, anyway, but nothing around here ever goes to plan. We don't know what the future holds for the Halcyon colony, and while things are looking up, we have to brace ourselves. The Earth Directorate may be on its way to check in, and who knows what they'll do when they see what's become of the colony. In the meantime, mercenaries and pirates will still be busy blasting one another to bits, while marauders left alive from the experiments on Gorgon, and as a result of any leftover Adrenatime, will wander the stars, causing all kinds of chaos. In the end, who knows what the future holds, but more strange science is certainly on the horizon. What weird new weapons and powers await us in the future of the Halcyon system? Well, we'll soon find out. Try not to get turned into dust in the meantime. Hey, sorry about that. Don't mind the blood on the floor. I'm totally the same guy. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate everyone who sticks around, especially if you made it to the end. If you're interested in seeing more of whatever this is, please like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Oh, and before you go, I'd like to give a shout out to my Patreon subscribers who help support the channel. Our $10 patron is Wachuki at the artisan level. If you want to get your name in the credits, head on over and sign up. The Patreon link is in the description. You'll get access to an exclusive Discord and some extra videos I don't put on the channel, and some other fun stuff we're working on over there. And remember, as Adam Savage once said, the only difference between screwing around and science is writing it down. Thank you all. Bye, Internet.